Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. This story isn't about a slow collapse. It's about an explosion, a single sentence that blew up everything at once. Let's get into it. It started with a ding. One tiny notification on my daughter's phone that she left charging in the hallway. She was upstairs. My wife was in the shower. I was alone. And that little alert, that stupid, innocent alert, would become the thing that detonated our entire family. Your DNA results are in. I didn't mean to snoop. I swear I didn't. But I recognized the app because I bought it. Gave it to her for Christmas. One of those just for fun genealogy kits, a stocking stuffer. She was into history. Seemed harmless. Seemed fun. I tapped it. I know I shouldn't have, but I was curious. Just wanted to see if she found out we had a Viking or a pirate or something wild in our blood. Instead, I found out I wasn't in her blood at all. There it was, under close matches. No father. Just Mallory listed as mother. And under father, nothing. No match. No trace. No me. I stood there for what felt like an hour. Heart pounding. Eyes burning. Trying to make sense of it. I refreshed the page like that would change something. I opened the details. Her DNA didn't even closely match mine. Not even a distant relative. Just a blank space where I should have been. Then footsteps. She was coming downstairs. I locked the phone and placed it exactly where I found it. My hands were shaking. I went to the kitchen. Tried to look normal. Poured a glass of water I didn't drink. My daughter, Nora, walked in. Smiling. Asking if we had any almond milk. I nodded, said nothing. And Mallory? She came down a minute later, kissed me on the cheek. Smelled like fresh shampoo and betrayal. I didn't sleep that night. I waited until everyone was asleep. Then I went back to the app, logged into the shared account from my own phone. I looked again. Still nothing. So I did what any rational man would do. I took my own test. And when the results came in, weeks later, everything I suspected was confirmed. But that wasn't the part that crushed me. The part that destroyed me came from Nora herself. 5 days later, she walked into the living room, holding her phone, eyes wide and red, and said it out loud. Dad's not my real father. And Mallory? She didn't deny it. She just whispered, I was hoping you'd never find out. I didn't confront Mallory that night. I couldn't. I lay awake in the guest room, a room I hadn't slept in since my mother visited 3 years ago, staring at the ceiling while every conversation we'd ever had played backward in my mind. All the sweet words. The anniversary promises. The way she used to say Nora had my nose. It all felt rotten now. Fabricated. A script she memorized too well. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of pancakes. Her usual move after a fight. Except we hadn't fought. Not yet. She was humming in the kitchen like we were still some happy little sitcom family. Nora wasn't at the table. She had left a note. At Rachel's, be back later. Please talk to Mom. That one line crushed me. I could tell from the handwriting that her hands were shaking when she wrote it. I waited until Mallory turned the stove off. She was still in her robe. Hair up. No makeup. The kind of look that used to feel intimate to me. Now it just looked like a stranger in my kitchen. I pulled up the DNA app on my phone and slid it across the table to her. She didn't pick it up. She didn't even flinch. I said, tell me who he is. She sat down slowly, her lips parting, but no sound coming out at first. Then she whispered, his name was Carter. Just like that. Like she was talking about some distant memory, not a man who helped create the child I raised for 20 years. He was a mistake, she added quickly. A dumb, stupid mistake. We weren't even serious. It was before I found out I was pregnant. I honestly thought you were the father. That's what the doctor told us. You remember. I cut her off. Don't rewrite history now, Mal. Just tell me everything. That's when the floodgates opened. She confessed that she and Carter had a brief fling during a rough patch in our engagement. Apparently, she broke it off with him the week before we got married. A month later, she found out she was pregnant, and according to her, she wanted it to be mine so badly that she convinced herself it was. And me? I believed her without question. I never doubted. Not once. But then she said something that still haunts me. I always knew there was a chance, but I didn't want to lose you. So I never pushed for a paternity test. I figured if Nora had your heart, that's all that mattered. I sat back in my chair, stunned. That's all that mattered. To you. She didn't cry. That was the worst part. She looked sad. Yes, but there were no tears. No breakdown. No begging. Just this calm, quiet acceptance, like she'd been rehearsing this moment for years. and now that it was finally here, she could breathe again. I asked if Carter knew. She hesitated, then nodded. He reached out once, a long time ago. Said he wanted to know if Nora was his. I told him no. I told him to leave us alone. And he did. I felt sick. He reached out. She shut him out. And all this time, I was the fool carrying the weight of a lie I never agreed to. I thought the betrayal was just the affair. But no, it was the years that followed. The birthdays, the scraped knees, the science fairs, the sleepless nights. Every one of those moments belonged to me. And yet, in her heart, they were shared with someone else. Someone named Carter. That was the moment something cracked. Not snapped, cracked. A slow, deep, almost quiet kind of break. The kind you don't notice right away, until the whole foundation starts to crumble. And I hadn't even told Nora I knew yet. For 2 full days, I avoided my daughter like a coward. Every time I heard her footsteps upstairs, I felt this tightness in my chest, like I was about to face a firing squad. I couldn't look her in the eye without hearing those 5 words again: "Dad's not my real father." I didn't know how to process it, let alone respond to it. And worse, I didn't want her to see me broken. I've always been the guy who fixes things, who stays calm, who shows up. But how do you show up when you're not sure you even belong in the picture? On the 3rd morning, I found Nora sitting on the porch. She had my old hoodie wrapped around her, the faded navy one from college that she used to steal when she was a kid. I almost turned back. But then she looked up at me, eyes swollen, face pale, and said softly, "Do you hate me?" That shattered me. I sat down next to her without saying a word. The silence was heavy, the kind that makes your skin itch. Then she said, "I only did it because I thought it'd be cool to learn about our ancestors. I didn't think it would, ruin everything." I took a breath and finally said it. "You didn't ruin anything, Nora. You just uncovered the truth. The person who kept that truth from us, that's not on you." She sniffled and looked away. Mom's been trying to talk to me, but I haven't answered her. I don't know what to say. I feel like I don't even know who I am anymore. I wanted to tell her that I understood, that I felt the exact same way, that I'd been walking through our house like a stranger in my own life. But instead, I did something I hadn't done since she was 9. I took her hand and held it tightly. "You're still Nora, my daughter. That hasn't changed." She turned to me with a mixture of relief and guilt. "But I'm not really your daughter, am I?" I felt the lump rise in my throat. I forced it back. "You are. Biology doesn't erase 20 years of memories, Nora. It doesn't change the way I felt when I held you for the first time, or the times I stayed up when you had nightmares, or the fact that I'd still jump in front of a bus to protect you." Then she asked the question I hadn't prepared for. "Are you going to leave, Mom?" It caught me off guard. I looked at her, unsure how much truth she could handle. "I don't know," I said finally. "Right now, I'm trying to understand how she could lie to both of us for so long. That's not something you just forgive in a weekend." Nora nodded slowly, then asked, "Are you going to try to find him?" I hesitated. Not because I hadn't thought about it. I had obsessively. I'd already searched Carter's name in every corner of the internet I could find. But something about the way she asked made me stop. Like maybe, somewhere deep down, she wanted to meet him too. Or maybe she was just scared he'd replace me. "I don't know that either," I said. "Do you want to?" She looked down at her hands. "Maybe. Someday. But not right now. Right now, I just need you." That sentence nearly wrecked me. I pulled her into a hug, and she let herself fall into my arms like she used to when she was little. I don't know how long we sat there, but for the first time since this whole thing started, I didn't feel like a complete imposter. But deep down, I still couldn't shake the feeling that our story wasn't over. Mallory had told me Carter was gone, that he wanted nothing to do with Nora. But something didn't add up. Because if Carter was truly out of the picture, why did I find an unread email from him in her old inbox that same night? Later that evening, after Nora went to bed, I sat alone in the living room, surrounded by shadows and silence. Mallory hadn't come home since our confrontation. She was staying at her sister's place, which honestly was the only smart decision she'd made lately. I wasn't sure what I'd say to her if she walked through the door. I wasn't even sure I could look at her without breaking into 1,000 pieces. But I also couldn't stop thinking about one thing: Carter. The man I had unknowingly traded places with. The ghost in the foundation of our marriage. I knew I needed answers, and I didn't trust Mallory to give them anymore. I went upstairs to Nora's room. She had fallen asleep with her laptop open on the desk. The same desk I had built for her 10th birthday. I remember how proud I felt when I screwed in that last drawer, thinking it would hold schoolwork, art projects, maybe a diary. Not secrets. Not connections to another life. I hesitated. Then I sat down. I know how it sounds. I know I was invading her privacy. But part of me felt like I had already lost everything. My right to know, my place in this family, my peace. All I had left was the truth, and I was desperate for it. I opened her email. Nothing obvious at first. A few promo codes, college newsletters, messages from friends. But buried in the updates folder, I found it. An unread message from someone named C. Smith 84. The subject line said only, "Please read this." My heart dropped. I clicked it. Inside was a short, carefully worded message. No greeting. No farewell. Just a few cold, clinical sentences that cracked something inside me. "I've respected your mother's wishes all these years. I stayed silent. I stayed away. But now that you've taken the test, I want you to know, I never walked away from you. I was told to disappear. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." There was a number. No name. No pressure. Just a quiet invitation. I sat there staring at it for a long time. Longer than I want to admit. Because everything Mallory told me was suddenly called into question. Carter hadn't abandoned them. He was pushed out. By her. Silenced. Cut off. And she'd built our life on the lie that he was never interested. So what else had she lied about? Did she ever plan to tell me if Nora hadn't taken the test? Was she still in touch with him? Did she love him more than me, even for a moment? My head was spinning with questions, each more bitter than the last. The part that hurt the most wasn't that Carter existed. It was that he tried. He tried to be part of Nora's life. And I had no idea. I closed the laptop and stood up, heart pounding. The house felt smaller somehow, like it was closing in on me, pressing against every wound I hadn't had time to process. I walked back to my room, or what used to be my room, and stared at the framed photo on the nightstand. The three of us on a beach in Maine. Mallory laughing, Nora holding a melted ice cream cone, me with my arm around both of them like I'd done something right. I picked up the photo and turned it face down. This wasn't my family. Not anymore. But the phone number in that email, that might be the only piece of this story I hadn't heard yet. And I wasn't sure if I was ready to call him, or terrified that I already knew I would. The number haunted me for 2 days. I saved it in my phone under unknown truth, because I couldn't bring myself to type his name. Every time I looked at it, my thumb hovered over the call button, but I couldn't do it. What if he was everything I wasn't? What if he had answers I couldn't handle? Or worse, what if he had regrets? And hearing them would make this pain even more unbearable. On the third evening, I sat in the car, parked in the grocery store lot under a flickering light, and I dialed. 3 rings. 4. Then silence. And finally, a voice. Calm. Measured. And so painfully familiar in a way that made my stomach tighten. "Hello." I didn't respond right away. I hadn't even thought about what I'd say. My mind went blank. "Hello," he repeated. "Is this Nora?" I cleared my throat. "No. It's Curtis." The pause was long. Too long. Then, "I wasn't expecting you to call." I took a breath. "She hasn't called, has she?" "No," he said softly. And I wouldn't blame her if she never did. There was another silence, thicker than the first. Then I asked the question that had been clawing at my inside since the moment I read his email. "Did you love her?" He didn't hesitate. Not the way you did. Not the way she needed. But yes, in a selfish, short-lived way, I did. His honesty stung more than a lie ever could. He told me they were never serious. That Mallory had ended things before our wedding. But apparently, he never knew about the pregnancy until years later. He claimed she called him when Nora was 3. Said it was a mistake. Said she needed to protect her family, and that if he cared at all, he'd let her go. So he did. I tried to convince myself it was the right thing, he said. But I never stopped thinking about her. About Nora. I could hear it in his voice, the regret, the bitterness, the wanting. It made me sick. "You had no right to want her," I snapped. "You disappeared. I raised her. I stayed." He didn't argue. He just said, "I know, and I don't want to take anything from you. I just want her to have the full picture if she ever asks for it." That was the part that crushed me. The full picture. Because for 2 decades, I thought I was the whole thing. The complete frame. But now I was just the man who filled in the space left by someone else's shadow. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. My hands were shaking. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked like a stranger, tired, sunken, hollowed out. When I finally drove home, the house looked different, colder, quieter. Nora was in her room. Mallory still wasn't back. I didn't go inside right away. I stood outside, watching the porch light flicker like it couldn't decide whether to stay on or die out. I couldn't believe I'd spent 20 years being someone's second choice and never even realized it. And now, the man she chose first was back in the picture. Not because he fought for it, but because I uncovered the truth she worked so hard to bury. Mallory came home on a Thursday evening, like she had just returned from a casual grocery run instead of fleeing the wreckage she helped create. She didn't knock, didn't call, just walked in, dropped her bag by the door, and quietly took off her coat. I was sitting at the kitchen table, rereading Carter's email over and over like it might suddenly rearrange itself into something less devastating. The moment I heard the keys drop, my whole body tensed. I didn't look up. I didn't move. She stood there in silence for a moment before finally speaking. I didn't want to stay away forever. I didn't reply. She moved closer. "Curtis, can we talk?" The laugh that escaped me wasn't humorous. It was bitter, empty. "Now you want to talk?" She sat across from me, folded her hands like she was preparing for a job interview. "I know you're angry." "No," I said, staring at her. Anger would mean I still have something to fight for. Her eyes flinched. I think that's the first time my words ever actually wounded her. Then I asked the question that had been burning a hole in my throat since the phone call. "Why did you lie to both of us for 20 years? Not just to me, Mallory, to Nora. You stole her right to know the truth. You told a man who helped create her to disappear. Who gave you that right?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't sure if they were for me or for her own guilt. Maybe both. She didn't cry, though. She blinked, breathed in, and answered calmly, too calmly. "Because I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew, you'd leave. Afraid she'd feel broken. Afraid everything we built would fall apart." "Well," I said, voice shaking, "congratulations. You were right." She leaned forward. "I know you think I picked him over you, but that's not true. Carter wasn't a serious part of my life. He was a mistake I made when I didn't even know what I wanted yet. But you were the one I chose. I married you. I raised Nora with you. That has to count for something. Not if it was built on a lie." She shook her head. "No, it was built on survival, on trying to protect what we had." I stood up. "No, Mallory, you didn't protect what we had. You protected your version of it. You made sure you had control. Over me, over Nora, over the narrative. You never gave either of us a choice." That finally broke her. Her voice cracked. "I didn't think I'd ever have to. I thought we were safe." I laughed again, hollow and raw. "Safe? You thought you could bury the past, and it would never claw its way back? You lied for 20 years. Did you think Nora would never get curious? Never want to know where she came from?" She wiped her face with the back of her sleeve. "I thought if I loved her hard enough, it wouldn't matter." I looked at her for a long time, and for the first time in 2 decades, I didn't see my wife. I saw someone I used to know. Someone who made a decision once, and then spent her whole life pretending it was the right one. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I want you to come with me. To therapy. Just once. For Nora." I almost said no. I was ready to walk away and never look back. But the truth was, Nora was still caught in the middle. And no matter how much this hurt, I couldn't drag her through the mud just to prove a point. "I'll think about it," I said. Mallory nodded, picked up her bag again, and went upstairs like the house still belonged to her. And as I sat alone in the kitchen, I realized something even darker. I wasn't sure if I missed the woman I married, or just the illusion of her I'd loved for so long. We sat in that stiff, neutral-colored room for nearly 10 minutes without speaking. The therapist, a gentle, gray-haired woman named Elise, gave us time to settle in, as she put it. I hated every second of it. Mallory sat to my left, hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes fixed on the box of tissues on the side table. Nora sat across from us, legs pulled up onto the armchair, hoodie sleeves covering half her face. And me? I was in the middle, physically, emotionally, spiritually. The man caught between betrayal and responsibility, between a family that no longer felt real and a daughter I still loved more than anything. Elise broke the silence. "Curtis, why don't you start by telling us what you're feeling right now?" I almost laughed. What I was feeling? Fury, grief, humiliation, confusion, heartbreak, guilt. How could I even pick one? I feel like I'm trapped in someone else's life, I said finally. Like I woke up in a house full of strangers pretending to be people I used to love. Mallory winced. Nora didn't move. Elise nodded. That's a powerful metaphor. Can you say more? I shook my head. Every memory I have from the last 20 years, it's been rewritten. Every moment I thought I understood, every choice I made, it's all different now. Because the foundation was a lie. Nora finally spoke, her voice almost too quiet to hear. It wasn't a lie for me. That stopped me. She looked up at me, and the pain in her eyes made it hard to breathe. I didn't know, Dad. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I just wanted to know if we had any Irish in us. Or maybe Viking. I didn't think it would ruin everything. You didn't ruin anything, I said instantly, without hesitation. You're not the one who lied. Mallory finally spoke. Curtis, I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I was protecting us. I looked at her, my voice low. No, you were protecting yourself. That silence again. Then Nora asked the question I didn't see coming. The question that would burn itself into my brain forever. If you had known from the beginning that I wasn't biologically yours, would you have still raised me? It hit me like a train. Everything else in the room disappeared. I looked straight at her, my chest tightening. Nora, being your dad has been the only thing I've ever done right. Nothing about you is a mistake to me. Not 1 second. She started to cry, and for the first time in days, I did too. Elise passed us tissues, but we didn't take them. Nora stood up, walked over, and hugged me so tightly I thought I'd collapse. And I held her back, because that was still real. No DNA test could erase that. Mallory watched us quietly. I could see her blinking fast, holding herself together. Maybe she knew there was no room for her in that moment. Maybe she knew that this bond, the one thing she hadn't fabricated, was the only thing holding this family together anymore. But even as I held Nora, even as I told her everything would be okay, part of me knew it wouldn't. Not really. Because when trust dies, something in you dies with it. And even if you rebuild, the cracks never really disappear. You just learn how to live around them. And Mallory? She had one more truth she hadn't shared yet. I could see it in her eyes. After the session, Mallory asked if we could talk privately. I didn't want to. I was drained, emotionally raw, and every time I looked at her, I saw the past 20 years folding in on themselves. But Nora needed peace, and I needed closure. We sat in the car in silence for a while before she finally spoke. There's something else I never told you, she said, barely above a whisper. Carter reached out again. Not just once. 3 times. Over the years. I turned to her slowly. And you never thought to mention that. I was terrified, she said. Not of losing you, but of losing the life we had. I kept hoping it would go away, that he'd give up, and we'd move on. I shook my head. We could have handled it. Together. But you never gave us the chance. She nodded, tears streaking down her cheeks. I know. And I'm sorry. I'll spend the rest of my life being sorry. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was just tired. Tired of holding it all in. Tired of being the only one who hadn't let go of the version of the past that didn't exist. I looked out the window, then back at her. We can't go back. But we don't have to burn everything down either. Not for Nora. What does that mean? She asked quietly. It means I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not fully ever. But I'm willing to build something new. If it's honest. No more secrets. Mallory broke down. It wasn't dramatic, just quiet, like her body was finally surrendering all the weight she'd been carrying. She reached for my hand, and I didn't pull away. Not because I was ready to be hers again, but because I wasn't ready to stop trying either. That night, we sat with Nora and told her everything, the full story. We let her ask questions. We didn't hide from the ugly parts. And when she said, I still love you both, I felt something begin to shift inside me. Not heal, not fully, but shift. Weeks passed. The air in the house grew lighter. Mallory and I started therapy together. Not to fix things, but to understand them. And Nora? She decided not to contact Carter, at least for now. I know who raised me, she said. That's enough. Sometimes the hardest truths lead us to the most honest places. And while I can't say we're the same family we once were, maybe we're something stronger. Not perfect, but real. And that's something I never thought I'd have again. That's the end of this story. If you've made it this far, thank you for staying with me. Now I want to hear from you. What moment in this story hit you the hardest? And what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let's talk in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own stories with us here on Reddit Confessions, where real life is sometimes more shocking than fiction.